financial, like that's the
Yeah,
other,
please tell me
one of
about
the other
that. Yeah.
things. Yeah, is and I it comes again, I was blessed beyond belief. My wife is super organized, but being a good steward of what you've been given, so many chiros and specifically chiros, and I'm sure it's in all industries, but we can have a large amount of success fairly easily, and it's always what's next. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I want the car, I want the house, I want the bigger office, which is all great. You should be striving to do those things, and I've done all things, but you need to, so many of them don't future cast what it's going to take for them 20, 30, 40 years into practice. And I'm
Sustain.
yeah, and I'm coaching docs today that are 30 years in that aren't in a position where they get to go to work.
Welcome, Genesis Nation. I am super excited to have with us today Dr. Paul Reed and with ChiroFest, as well as the Unstoppable, is it Unstoppable Man? Unstoppable Chiro.
Both.
Both. Okay, great. And we're gonna peel that apart. But before we go into what you're doing for coaching, I would love to share with our audience your practice history, how that led into ChiroFest,
Oh.
and then where it's going from here, because I know there's a lot of deep work for a lot of the men that you're working with from multiple facets of life and practice life. So let's rock and roll, man.
Well, shoot, dude. Hey, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Starting off
Yeah,
2024 with a bang. New haircut, new everything, man. So it's
I love it.
it's good. It's good. So shoot, practice. So I've been licensed, practicing 26 years next month.
Wow.
Been licensed in the state of Washington. So a long time. I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm green any longer.
Yeah.
I've
You've
taken,
earned,
what's that?
you've earned your wisdom whiskers.
Yes, lots of
Good
gray.
hair.
That's why I keep it off.
Yes.
Man, so it's been good. Practice was amazing. I opened in, grew up in Vancouver, Washington, went to school, came back, opened up in the same town, and that, had its challenges in the sense that, some of the adults that, saw me growing up, like, oh, it's just Paul, I don't want to go see him. But then it had its huge benefits. My dad was a teacher and a coach, so lots of his colleagues and whatnot helped me really jumpstart my practice and grow it
Awesome.
from early on. Yeah, so yeah, grew had as many as 5 practices at any one time. The premise behind that, honestly, man, is I wanted a unified message. So I figured if I had multiples, and I had my first practice for a decade before I did the second office, really mastered my system and my process before overstretching myself. But it was one of there's a school with Lack Mind across the river that wasn't really teaching principled chiropractic, even though I went to that school. I had been getting adjusted since I was 13. Knew what chiropractic was and what I wanted it to be in my community, or continue to be in my community. And so I found a need and wanted to unify the message, what I thought was the appropriate message for chiropractic care in regards to correction and supportive care, wellness, whatever you want to call it, beyond your initial intensive care. And so, yeah, that was really the madness behind doing that. I would say that I was one of the early adopters to do that. So it would have been 16 years ago, the second office opened, and most of my colleagues are like, "You're nuts. What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And my wife and I had good unity and teamwork to be able to scale and expand. I think we had as many as 33 employees at one time.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's with that, there's lots of bumps, right? Like learning.
Of course. We could go way down that rabbit hole, and I'm more interested in, because I know we're going to have a lot of conversations here, and for sake of time, really,
Yeah.
I want to kind of laser focus on a couple things today. I would imagine that, because running something like ChiroFest is not just like this seminar where there's a bunch of vendors. I mean, it's a fired up. I haven't been myself, but I know colleagues of mine and from Genesis have gone, and I know it's a principled, you're looking at the roots and the depth of chiropractic. And I'm really curious, because you went to that school that was not a principled school right across, you said, and we won't name it, but whatever. Like what what was your early inspiration to become a more principled and unified message, as you said? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Who was your
Yeah, so the DCs that I saw growing up were really what helped keep me anchored, and that's the only way I was able to go to that school without, coming out completely messed up and thinking that somebody needed 3 visits and refer them out if you didn't get them better,
Yeah.
type of care. And so it was, yeah, and so to fast forward to ChiroFest, bro, like that's selfishly, that's the reason we can go back to when I met with Billy and said, hey, let me, move it to the north. But selfishly, is so that we can keep chiropractic principled, so that my kids know and understand chiropractic the way that I grew up understanding chiropractic, and the way that I think chiropractic should be practiced and communicated to the masses. And so that's selfishly ChiroFest. It's a pain in the butt. It's a year-round job. But it's really, again, serve something bigger than self. It's really not about me. It's about continuing to have principled chiropractic for decades, long beyond when I'm not walking this planet anymore. So that's,
Yeah, it's your legacy, man.
yeah,
It's just, congrats on that. And I know it's, from an administrative standpoint, it's a heavy.
yeah.
What's it feel like at the end? Like, do you every year you like it was worth it?
Yeah, 100%. Leading up to it, I'm like, why am I putting myself in
Right.
my
I can imagine like up to a couple minutes before it's go time, but I'm sure you're super fired up like right
yeah,
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, it's actually as soon as it kicks off and we get into momentum. And I have docs that I haven't seen in a year, right? Everybody's hugging and high fiving and excited. It's just super rewarding. And then the fallout afterwards is always the messages and the emails from docs like, dude, this is exactly what I needed. It got me re-engaged with my why. My practice has taken off since I showed up. Like all this stuff that happens from, coming together. Unfortunately, so many chiropractors don't understand the power of that unity coming together and rubbing shoulders and seeing each other. And it just,
I think it's more important. It's really more important than the average person or Cairo thinks of. And we have a pretty unique perspective in our profession. Obviously, we're all positive minded, health minded, or many of us are. It gets lonely. Like that lone wolf syndrome really is not sustainable.
no,
We
it's,
may break loose, and I really applaud you for putting this together because we need our brothers and sisters
mm,
to help us. Maybe my why is different than your why. But if I'm not attached to it and it's not a clear vision for myself, it's unattainable. And
yep.
then practice will just become the dollars, the cents, the codes, and the
Mm,
numbers. And that itself can't sustain.
yep.
Have you seen that before? Like, are you just telling people, hey, because I can see you're not just like get to ChiroFest, you do something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're 1,000% correct. Like our our profession is unique in the sense that a lot of us think we can do it on our own, and you can have, in my opinion, short-term success, but it's just we get beat up so much, right?
Yeah.
If you're not having your brothers and sisters around to support you physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever you need, like it's taxing. It's going to wear on you. You're not going to have the vibrancy that you once did. So it's just, it's as powerful, I wouldn't say it's as powerful, but it's almost as powerful as the adjustment coming together with like-minded people,
Yeah.
rubbing shoulders and, we're created to be together, right? We're created to be people.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that we're, setting some boundaries and regularly getting together with like-minded folks. So
Yep,
it's,
and we are a relational species. That's
yeah.
what helped us evolve. And I'm myself. I fell prey to this. Like the lone wolf syndrome, burnout, got caught up in my family, wasn't going to seminars, and it led to I would say like a shutdown or a freeze or a burnout where I made decisions that were not the best for everyone around, and it really taught me about what is burnout, how does it feel in the body,
Mm,
how do you recognize it, how do you repair from it, how do you rebuild. So I've learned that on myself, and that's
yeah.
what brought me to Genesis too, because I want to teach my brothers and sisters how to not do the same thing I did. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so tell me about, I know now you have evolved into coaching. Obviously, you've had a lot of business success in and out of the profession, and ChiroFest in itself is just an energy and a movement. Where have you found yourself now as a coach? Like, what have you found important?
Yeah, I really, again, kind of back to the same thing is building a tribe where people, a unified message come together where there's support, encouragement. And again, so exactly your point, like we get stuck on this island and we backslide Like we've all done it. Like I've been there, I've let myself go. And it's really my focus is helping the doc show up as the best version of themselves, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Like I'm a firm believer that who you are is a direct relationship to your success in your practice. So if you can have, like you said, the codes and the day one and the day two and all this stuff to run a practice, but if you yourself, if your house isn't in order, like if your house is a mess, the
Yeah.
business the business long term will eventually be in a mess. And I've seen it time and time again with single doc offices, with corporates that have multiple, hundreds of offices. Like if your house is in order, if it's fragmented, if it's a disaster, long term the business is not going to win. And again, one of my early mentors, taught me way back, like you're no good to God, your family, your community, or business if you're sick or dead. So really learning to do your best to take care of you on all planes. So
Love it. So when you're saying your house is in order, so two things I'm pulling out of that, your house in order and taking care of you. When you say house, you're like metaphorically speaking, or are you saying like literal house or
both,
like
yeah, theoretically and practically, yeah. Like I I would actually go out, sneak out when I have a doc interview and look inside that doc's car to see what the car looked like, because really, like,
Interesting.
it's a reflection of
I'm
like
gonna
what
pause
you're
this and
bringing.
I'm gonna go get my car
I'm
keys.
gonna go clean my car. No, it's like when your relationship with your spouse is good, the business is good. You have your stuff organized, like you know it, like clutter piles right around the house or wherever your office creates mental clutter. And if you have
Yes.
mental clutter, you can't have clarity and certainty on where you're going and what you're doing and the process needed to get there. And so really, if your house, your faith is in order, your physical health is in order, your relationships are in order, like if all that stuff is in order, like your practice will thrive. But we backslide, and it's okay. Like we all have, that's what a coach is for, right? To see the scotomas, the blind spots, like, hey man, you need work over here. Like we got to get this cleaned up in order for this to go. And so yeah, that's metaphorically and practically.
Yeah, and it rings true for me. I've seen it myself. Like when my mind is disorganized, I have to start looking around at like, did I pay my bills? Did I, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, put this all together. Did I take care of taxes? Did I take care of my kids? Because we all have multiple irons in the fire as chiros. I think we're designed. I mean, we choose this profession, I believe. Most of us are all ADHD. I've never met
It's-
like I've met calm chiropractors, but they're usually of, our older generation, but they're still
oh yeah,
I've
what's
men
next?
and
Where am
women
I
in my
going?
profession in their 60s and 70s who have just as much energy as I saw 20 years ago when I started the profession. And it's
Yeah.
awesome to see that. And I'm not shaming. I think that like it's like we're designed to be able to handle all this. So you said faith or spiritual, emotional, physical, uh, emotional. Did I say that? Physical,
Yep.
spiritual, body, mind,
Body mind
spirit.
balance. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does it look like to have faith or spirit in order?
Man, I think that's a constant, like everything, it's a constant work in progress. I think submitting and knowing that you're not perfect and that you're here and open and willing and being guided to shape and form into the best version of yourself. We all fall short, and it's recognizing and being self-aware, letting the ego go, right? Like, no, I need some work in that area. Thank you for making me recognize that, and not and I've been a victim of where I like try and run through the wall over and over and over again. I'm like, all right, dummy, like that's not working. Like, like you know,
Us
um,
men, I'm speaking as man to
yeah,
man. We're pretty
yeah,
dense, right? It's so it
yeah,
takes
dude, I've been concussed
some
way too many
injury and
times.
pain. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, so that's keeping faith in order. I love that. How about um emotionally? Like what does it look like to keep the emotions in order?
Again, being grounded, and not, yeah, man, it's all about ego, right? Because we just get our ego in the way, and emotionally, like we try um, and weakness is okay. Weakness is showing an area that you need improvement, you need to strengthen. And so a lot of
Yeah.
time, again, because it's two dudes, like men especially, we like, nope, I'm good. I'm going to work through that. And then weeks, months, years down the road, we have this major emotional, mental crisis, breakdown, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it. And it's because we, early on, wouldn't submit. Like, no, that I have a fault. I have a weakness there.
Yep.
Get some support to strengthen that weakness so that it doesn't manifest, down the road is a bigger issue. And so I think again, it is men, especially everybody, but men at large, like we like, oh, we got to be emotionally strong, which we do, and we're called to do that. But again, we all have weaknesses, and understanding and recognizing those and being self-aware of them, and not just, head in the sand model doesn't work.
I have, I'm so glad you said that, because I've equated that as like grit not being sustainable by itself, right? Because grit is required. And like, we can apply this to chiropractic offices or anything. And I find, one, we're two men talking. Obviously, people do know that. And it's, so we're going to speak from that perspective, but this does apply to everyone. But I think our expertise is in being men, that's where all of our experience is. So I found we all suffer or at least experience the same stuff. Running a household, building a business. Is it okay to be vulnerable? Like, because we've been told, don't be a whatever.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
cry. Don't share your emotions. That's what I was told when I was younger.
Yep.
Getting beat up by my brothers for expressing myself. But as I've gotten older, I've leaned into the courage, and it's actually a strength to be vulnerable, say I'm weak here.
Yeah.
So even working for a company like Genesis, I'm looking at, man, like I don't know insurance coding and billing, right? That's a weakness of mine, and I don't want to get better at it. Like I'll have a good understanding so I can look at the metrics, but I'm going to outsource that weakness. So thank you for doing that. And I know it's something that you've seen. I've myself gotten involved with a lot of just work in men's groups where we create containers where it's okay to share feelings, but also have it in a container that's, a strong structure. So it's not just like a complaining session, because that gets nobody anywhere. Yep. Have you found that dealing with the men that you're dealing with in chiropractic, does everyone have the same issues?
I think they sometimes all come back to the same thing. I mean, it's not the same, but it leads back to the same inner struggle.
Yep.
And it's helping people. And I dealt and deal with this myself. It's like we create this story in our mind based on a past experience we had, like you said, with a brother, with a teacher, with a parent, with a coach, like whomever, right? And it's breaking that story, that reel that's running in our mind over and over and over again, that we're basing all other expectations and results on that story that was told. That's probably a lie. Like it was that person's truth, was that their truth, wasn't my truth, wasn't my expected outcome. And so we're allowing that to like course correct us, and we're making decisions off that instead of really like looking inside, like what is right for Paul, what is right for Brian, like what are we supposed to be doing? And people allow that. Like we've all had traumatic experiences, and we allow that to again influence us, and I would say not taking action and allowing that story to like hold you back instead of like, no, F that, I'm done, like that was then, like I'm a new person, let's go.
Right. Like using your mind for you instead of letting it use you.
Yeah.
Right? It's like rewriting that story. Beautiful, man. Okay, so we talked about organizing yourself spiritually or in faith, organizing emotionally. And I would assume, that's also your relationships as well, right? If you can handle yourself, you're more self-aware, you're going to relate better to staff members, to your spouse, to your children. What is your approach? And is it like a one size fits all, or how do you look at like organizing yourself physically?
I've said this on a handful of podcasts. I personally believe, and this is just me based on my experience, that your physical disciplines support and strengthen all other disciplines in your life. It's going to strengthen your faith. It's going to strengthen your relationships. It's going to strengthen you mentally. So I am, granted, I grew up in the gym, was a high level athlete, and so that was my out. But as I've matured, I found that when my life is most successful, my relationship's the best, my business is the best, financially I'm doing the best, is when I'm physically challenging myself and staying disciplined to that. I think that discipline above all other disciplines builds everything else around us. And so I strongly encourage everybody I work with or talk to, like, you have to get in a rhythm of disciplining yourself physically daily. And that somebody like challenged me on that, like, well, you can't train every day. I'm like, well, time out. Like you can, your intensity varies, right? Like today, like I'm going to go all out today. I'm going to redline today, but knowing tomorrow, I'm just going to move. Right. But it's building in that discipline. I'm an avid, it builds everything else. And so
it's consistency way more important than, well,
outcome.
supersedes intensity, right? But you're going to vary that. I love. So active recovery, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at flow states, there are stages of flow. So you have
Yeah.
to actually struggle and then release and relax and
Yeah.
then step into flow and then have active recovery. So I found that critical because the days that I take a break, like let's say recently, I'll give a story. I was surfing
Yeah.
and getting my butt handed to me, just eating a lot of water. And 2 days in a row, double sessions. And I was like, dude, I need a break. Like my body hurts. Everything that I wasn't using hurt. Took a break, had an active recovery day, went back the next day. It was the best day I ever surfed. So, I mean, but that's consistent time and time again. But I think there is it does fall into that emotional play, right? Like you got to admit, like, dude, I don't have to kill it every day in the gym. Like the way
Yep.
to make gains is to actually heal and use active recovery. We know that better than anything. All right. So we talked about organizing faith, organizing spirit, organizing body and physicality, organizing emotions. Are you coaching on nutrition also in this body
A,
perspective?
a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Again, as you and I, we know, like like so much of what abs are made in the kitchen, right? Like so many
Yes.
guys, like
Man,
I want
yes.
that, I want to do this, but like you're undisciplined again, in the nutrition component. But so back to physicality, I know from personal experience, having been, I was super lean, shredded in high school, got to college, showed up that way, became a lot. I was transferred into an offensive lineman, so I left college like almost 280 pounds. Right, was not couldn't
Yeah.
see the you could see a pony cake, right?
That was
Um,
like that was like peanut butter and avocados like in every smoothie. Yeah.
but when we're physically disciplined, again, exercising, it almost forces you to eat better and cleaner. Like
Yeah.
you make it a better decision about what you eat when you've been physically active and disciplined. So yes, nutrition is hugely important. But again, I think that is shaped from your physical discipline that you're doing.
Awesome. Am I missing any other components to
We
the
financial, like that's the
yeah,
other
please tell me
one of
about
the other
that. Yeah.
things. Yeah, and I it comes again. I was blessed beyond belief. My wife is super organized, but being a good steward of what you've been given, so many chiros and specifically chiros, and I'm sure it's in all industries, but we can have a large amount of success fairly easily, and it's always what's next. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I want a car, I want the house, I want the bigger office, which is all great. You should be striving to do those things, and I've done all things, but you need to. So many of them don't future cast what it's going to take for them 20, 30, 40 years into practice, and I'm
Sustain.
yeah, and I'm coaching docs today that are 30 years in that aren't in a position where they get to go to work. They're still in a position I have to go to work because of my
Mhm.
obligations, because of decisions I made 15, 20, 30 years ago. And so
Yeah.
really helping docs, like we're great at like forecasting future health stuff for practice members. Like, hey, if you don't take care of this subluxation, you leave this here 15, 20, 30, 40 years, X,
Right.
Y, and Z is going to happen. You're not going to perform and function the way you want to, the way you're created to. Well, it's no different with our finances. If we're not like, hey, I need X amount for me to live the lifestyle that I want to live by 50 or whatever, 60, we'll wake up and live for the day and not for the future. And so I see so many chiros are just not good stewards with their finances. And a lot of them need coaching / support / encouragement, guidance, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Discipline.
Discipline. Yeah. And it starts with what we're thinking, right? I just did a reel today on everything happens twice in the world. First is a thought, and then in reality. And so a lot of them haven't even taken the time to think about what they're going to need or what it's going to look like. And then it's crisis care, right? Like the fire's burning. I got to get a fire hose and put it out. And then that creates more emotional stress, physical stress, and all the things that lead to breakdown. And so really thinking about where you want to go, what you need, what you're going to need, even in the point of like assessing, all right, well, say we have a 3% inflation every year till the time I'm 60. So what's that number look like in order for me to get there to be able to do the things that I want to do? So
Love it. Love it. So when you're coaching and taking people under your wing, so to speak, we've only met each other a handful of times, but I see you more as a guide than a
mm,
coach. And I mean that as a compliment. It's
thank you.
like because you don't come like you're a presence, right? But you're super humble and friendly. So it's like and I like you immediately you didn't come off like I did this, you should do it. It's more like where are you at? here's what's successful, or here's what's been proven successful. And it really comes down to basics, like being disciplined and organized. And,
dude,
and
dude,
it's like,
and yeah, success is boring. Like that's the other thing people don't like. There's
yeah,
no magic. Like it is literally it's getting up and doing the same crap
yeah,
over and over. And now if it's not working, like again, like don't go no, the definition of sanity, right? Doing it over and over, you're not getting a different result. But like it's like once you find what's working, get the cog going, like just keep pouring gas on it. That's the other thing with Kairos. I laugh at them like that thing was working. Why did you stop doing it? Like,
right.
no,
Or the
like,
marketing, or the, it's funny
yeah.
because I think before we went live, we were both saying we're wearing black. And I'm just always putting black on because
Yep.
I don't have to make a decision. It's either like a hoodie or a shirt or a collared shirt, but it's
Yep.
black. It just makes my life real simple. I know what to wear, and it's
Yep.
it.
Steve, Steve,
Decision
Steve
fatigue.
Jobs, right? Blue jeans and
Yes.
black shirt.
Yep. I try to look a little smoother than him and show off my
Yeah.
body a little, but but okay. So what's next for you in coaching? Because I know this is pretty new for you. What's happening next? How do
Man,
we find you? And we'll put all the stuff underneath, but like, what does it look like to coach with you?
man, yeah. So I have a couple of different, most of my docs are doing group. I have some one-on-one intensive stuff. I'm launching, like I told you, some men's. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into some men's health. Again, it's just where I'm passionate at. I think,
Love it.
I don't want to say where I've been most gifted, but like you said earlier, it's where I've had the most experience.
Yeah.
The lessons I've learned personally throughout my life, in the short 52 years I've been here, I want to help other docs have that experience. And the only reason I'm coaching Brian Kairos is chiropractic was so good to me. Like I want to help other chiropractors. Again, like I said, like we can be really successful with very little effort. And so help them put in a little bit more effort, be more successful, and reap the benefits of what chiropractic can offer them in regards to their life. So it's
Awesome.
that's really the
And
push.
can we expect to see like retreats or boot camps, or like what?
Yes, yes, and yes.
All
Yes.
that's good. How
Yeah.
about cold plunges, fire walks? Like, are we?
I love all that stuff. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
I
too.
did
So
my first fire
count
walk
me
with,
in. I'm there.
okay. All right. I did
Yeah.
my first fire walk with Ron Oberstein in like 19, oh man, what have that been? Like 98, 99, something like that. So yeah, long
Awesome.
time.
Well, I mean, it's like pushing mind over matter, and it's
Mhm.
so doable. And you don't realize it until you actually walk across hot coals
Yeah.
without getting burnt. So it's and
Or
what it
bent
takes.
rebar. Have you done bent rebar before?
That one I haven't. I'm ready.
So that's great. So you walk with a partner, you put it in your suprasternal notch and you walk together and rebar. I mean, it's yeah, powerful
Wow.
stuff.
All right, cool. Count me in, man.
All
Is
right,
it
bro.
just Paul Reed coaching, or
Yeah. Well, it's the Unstoppable Chiro, the
okay,
Unstoppable Man, both. Yeah, the easiest way to find me is on Instagram, Dr. Paul
great,
Reed. Yeah, that's the easiest. Or Facebook, Paul Reed. So yeah.
good. We'll put all that down, and then make sure Genesis Nation. Hopefully, we'll see you out in Washington at ChiroFest. And when is ChiroFest?
September 13, 14. Yeah, again, keeping it principled. It's the closest weekend to anniversary weekend, September 18th, as I can get it based on hotel
Awesome.
availability and whatnot. So yeah.
And it's always in Vancouver, Washington.
It has been. It's been in Washington. I started in Vancouver, took it to Seattle, brought it back to Vancouver, and then for a couple of years with all the nonsense, I took it to Idaho for 2 years in a row just to to
Yeah,
avoid
I get it. Yep.
Yep.
Now it's
Last year,
fair.
yep. Last year it was back here, and yeah, this will be year 15, which is nuts.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, you are a gift to the profession. I'm going to also say you're a gift to men and women, and I appreciate what you're doing, especially the man experience. I'm excited to get involved, stay involved, and see what's next, man. So Genesis Nation, please check out Dr. Paul Reed, ChiroFest, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Doc.
Thanks, brother.